and we are interviewing great-grandma. So here goes.
Take the hat off so we can see your face, lovely man.
Yeah, it's a handsome
What
face.
year were you born in?
Look at her.
What did you say? Where was I?
What year were you born in?
1915.
Where were you born?
Brooklyn, New York.
Who were your siblings in age order?
My siblings was Minnie, Seal, Fanny, Harry, and David.
What community did you grow up in?
What community?
Like, what was it like where you were living?
It was all Jewish people. There was one Italian family in the whole community, and he was the barber. He had one son and a little baby.
Did you get your hair done by him?
A cut.
Barber.
A haircut, yes.
Yeah.
He used to charge 10 cents for a haircut.
Oh, wow.
Wow, bargain compared to today.
Did the family move around quite a bit?
No, not at all. I was born, I forget the name of the street. But from there, when I was like 2 years old, we moved to Riverdale Avenue. And when I was about 8 years old, we moved to a better apartment on Riverdale Avenue, the same street, but the other end.
Okay. Where did your parents come from?
Russia. One came from Bialystok, and one came from wherever,
Elie Wiesel is from?
no, the artist.
Yeah, one of his
I
brothers.
forget where he came from. What's his name?
Not Picasso.
No,
Monet?
No,
no.
I forget for the minute.
Yeah, me too.
Oh wait, was this your dad or your mom?
Mom. I mean
That you
Dad. Yeah, what did your parents do for a living?
We had a kosher meat market and sold eggs in addition.
And this was in where right by you lived?
It was in the same building we lived, but downstairs was the store and we were on the 3rd floor. We lived on the 3rd floor.
Was your family financially comfortable?
We were comfortable. You have to remember that I went through a very bad depression. I went through 1929 and 1930, and things were very bad, but my family always had enough to eat and to have $1 in your pocket.
What do you remember best about your parents?
My parents were very kind, they were very helpful, and they were very charitable. As little as we could, they never refused anyone that knocked on our door and asked for charity. They always gave something.
What were their names?
My name?
No, your parents' names.
Dickman. Anna and Bernard Dickman
And what
were
was
my
your mother's
parents'
maiden
name.
What was your mother's maiden name?
Rubenstein.
Okay.
Somebody can take this then and just verify their own self as being me. Go ahead.
Which family member do you resemble?
Which family
Which
member
family member do you resemble?
Okay.
do I remember?
Who do you look
Resemble.
like? Who do you look like?
Believe it or not, I don't know. I think maybe my mother, but I'm not sure. My mother was prettier. She was a beautiful woman. I was never what you'd call a beautiful girl, you know. I was nice looking, but not a beauty like my mother.
You're a beauty, great
You
grandma.
should see my mother.
Did you know your grandparents or great-grandparents?
I do remember my grandfather, as he was dying, he was laying in bed, and he had a beard, and he gave me a nickel. As he was dying, he said, "Here, this for you, you're a good girl." She gave me a nickel, and that pleased me very much.
Wait, what about, that was your only grandparent?
Yeah, that I know, that I ever saw.
Oh, how old were you when he passed away?
About 4 or 5.
Oh.
What were their names? Or what was his name?
I don't remember his first name, but his last name would have been Dickman, like my father's.
The camera.
He was my father's father.
Okay. Where did they live?
He lived with us. Everybody that came and had no place to live lived with us. My mother was a
Generous?
wonderful hostess, let me put it that way.
Okay.
Say bye.
Say bye.
Thank you.
That was Josh Shapiro interviewing.
Very good job done.
One of her many.
You wanna send Jacob or Danielle?
Jacob is not
Okay,
here.
fine. The next
But
question.
she's coming.
Okay.
Josh, close the door. Did you have a favorite aunt or uncle?
Oh yes, oh yes. I had my Aunt Linny, that was my mother's sister, and my daughter Elaine is named after her. And then I had Uncle Ziskin, who was my mother's brother. My mother's family were very, very gentle people and very likable. So that was my favorite uncle and my favorite aunt.
Do you have any good memories with them?
Oh, yes, yes.
Do you want to share one?
Well, my uncle had a candy store in Bensonhurst, an Orthodox area. And when we used to go visit him, he would always give me an egg soda, an egg chocolate soda, and a cookie or something sweet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved to go visit him.
Can't blame
Being
you.
the child in me, yes. And my Aunt Linny lived in Union City, New Jersey. So to see her, we had to travel on the underground train under the water of the Hudson River to get to New Jersey. Used to be a very long trip, really a long trip. And she was a wonderful hostess, like my mother. She had everything cooked and ready for us, and it was always wonderful. You felt like you came into your home, like. And I enjoyed being with them. Then I had another aunt who was my mother's sister. Her name was Tinny. Now, I don't know what it was in English. And believe it or not, she was a brilliant woman and was able to be on the stock market in those days. Women were not on stock markets, but she was brilliant. She had 7 children. Everyone was very educated. Lawyers, teachers, everybody there was very educated. But when I came there, she would cut up an orange in 4 parts and give me one little piece to eat, because she was very stingy. But she was rich. And by the way, she had a chair elevator in those days. A chair elevator. I had never seen it, I had never heard of it. But her husband was a sick man, so they had this chair elevator. Very interesting. Their name was Fredman.
Oh. Wait, I just want to ask you, who are you named after?
I was an unusual case. You know, in the Jewish religion, you don't name after anybody that's alive.
Yeah.
But my mother's sister, who wrote regularly with my mother had not had a letter from her in over 2 months. So she went to the rabbi, and she said that she was carrying a child, and she was worried that maybe her sister died and that she has nobody to put a name after her. But the rabbi said, you can't tell. Your sister might be alive. So she went home. When my mother came back again, a month or 6 weeks or 2 months later, the same conversation took place. And that was it. finally my mother had me, and she had not heard from her sister. She named me after her sister, Gwendolyn, and her sister had died. I was
Really?
named after a dead person, but my mother was not sure.
How'd she find out?
Well, others wrote, and...
Yeah, where was your sister living?
In Russia.
Oh.
And
So your Yiddish name is...
Genendel.
Okay. And did your parents call you that?
Yes. Well, no. Really, my parents called me Nenny.
Oh, that's cute.
My mother couldn't say Gwenny. The GW threw her. She couldn't say it. So instead of Gwenny, she called me Nenny.
That's really cute.
So my father did too.
What did you and your siblings do in your spare time?
Well, they were all out of the house except my sister Minnie. I was the youngest. They were all in their own homes. So, I don't know, what they did. The
Yeah.
women did cooking, taking care of the house. The men worked, going for a livelihood.
Yeah. So what did you and your sister Minnie do? Did you hang out together?
She was older than I. She was working,
Oh.
and she worked in the Jewish hospital, and then she worked for Dr. Shukov. No, but we were very close, and also we wore the same size dress because I was big. My sister Minnie was small, so it
convenient.
worked out very well. As
Yeah.
I was young, I could wear her clothes.
That's cute. So what did you do on your own in your spare time?
Oh, I had lots of friends. Oh, yes. That I had. I had a friend, E.T., next
popular.
door. I had my friend Lily on the next block, Jenny 2 blocks away, and Ruth was also that. I had many, many friends. Very good friends, too.
Yeah.
And Vita, by the way, who is 95, is still my friend. She's the only one
Wow.
left from my neighborhood.
That's so nice. Do you see her?
I talked to her. I don't see her. I just spoke to her the other night, but I don't see her. She lives in Schenectady.
What school did you go to?
I started in 165, but the second year a new school had been built, 183, so I was transferred there. And from there I went to 84, which was a girls' school, and it was an advanced school. You made 3 years in what was it?
What age was that? How old were you when you went to that school?
I graduated high school, I was 15 and 3 months.
Oh, wow. So that was the new school that you went to?
Yeah.
For high school?
The high school was Franklin K. Lane.
Oh, okay. Did you have a Jewish education?
I started at the Hebrew Academy, not the Academy, what am I saying? The Hebrew school there, but only boys were permitted to go. But my father wanted me to have a Jewish education, so he got the rabbi to let me in. I sat in a corner by myself. The rabbi never once addressed me by my name. I had no name. He would hit me on the fingers or on my back with the rod that he walked around with. And he never called me by name. He never called me to stand up and answer anything. But if he wanted to talk to me, he used to hit me. The second or third year, I don't remember exactly, I refused to go. I told my
Did they hit everyone?
No, only me. I was the girl in the whole class. I sat by myself like I had the mumps. They wouldn't let me in the class even. When the boys had to go in first, when they all got seated, I could go in. I didn't like it. I was very annoyed with it. So I went to Hebrew classes, but I took a dislike to it then. I really did.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you observant growing up as a child? What part did religion play in your family?
My parents were religious. We kept a kosher home, and that we observed all the holidays. My father was very active in the shul across the street. He used to read always Friday night because he was very educated. My father spoke 6 languages. He worked for the government, my father. And we were very religious. Not very religious like you all are. That I wasn't. But
Yeah.
religious that we did nothing wrong, you know.
Yeah. And what did your dad do for the government?
My father was in the street cleaning department, and he invented 2 things. One was a hook that was on a rubber backing, and you hung it on the wall. The rubber backing caught on the wall, and you
Suction
had
cup?
a
Suction.
suction, and you had a hook to hang your clothes on. And then he developed that. It used to be that they would go in the street and wash the streets.
They still
you know.
do it. Yeah.
They still do it. I
Yeah, they
never
still
see
do.
Like the brushes. They
brushes.
do it in Boston. I know they do it. And like
I
Brooklyn,
I
I've
haven't
seen it.
seen it.
Yeah.
I never saw it anymore.
I saw it on the main street.
But now that's what he invented. Those 2 things.
Wow. That's
He didn't
cool.
get any money for it because he worked for the government.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And sometimes he used to be called in for an interpreter because he spoke the different languages so well, and English.
Oh, how do you know all those languages? Where did
From
you learn
Europe.
them?
From Europe,
Oh.
yes. First of all, you know where you live. He lived in Russia, but it was also Poland, so you learned Polish and Russian.
Yeah.
Then you learned, you lived near France or something. You went there, you learned that. He learned all these languages, spoke German and French. When I took French in school, he helped me.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was a big help.
Did your family have any special traditions?
Such as,
Like, was there anything you guys did that was special in the family? Any?
I don't know what you mean by
Oh, no.
tradition.
Like we go to the Jersey Shore every year. I don't know.
What?
Did you
Like-
take any trips or?
Did you?
Well, my father had a farm in Cahonkson, New York. It's near where your grandmothers go for Passover, Cahonkson. And, well, when my father died, we gave it to my brother because my brother used to help him and give him money there, you know. So we gave it to my brother.
So would you go visit the farm when you were a kid?
We used to go, but with my parents had the store. We had to be open Sunday, so we couldn't go much. We used to drive up, but it wasn't too. It was in the mountains, you know.
Yeah.
And then the traffic wasn't what it is today, but neither was the cars, you know.
Did you guys have a car?
My brother had a car. My oldest brother had a beautiful LaSalle. Oh, it was gorgeous.
What color?
It was a very fancy car. I used to stand outside and watch it. If anybody came over, don't touch, don't touch. That was me standing there. And they would go on along, look, look. Can we look in? Yeah, look in, but don't touch. And
Are there any family recipes that are particularly special?
I'm an old-fashioned cook. I cook. I think I was always a good cook. My other sisters were
Grandma, what do
wonderful
you
cooks.
say about that?
Very good cook.
My other sisters were wonderful cooks too, and my Elaine and Brenda and your grandmother are wonderful cooks. I think, you know,
They are.
each one could give an affair without any trouble.
Do you remember any specific recipes that your mom would make that you liked?
No, we ate simply simple
Yeah.
food. But it was like every Friday, you see, my parents had the kosher meat market, so we had lots of food in the house. And like we'd have duck every Friday. I hated duck. And I got tired of it, you know.
Yeah.
We had chicken, we had duck, we had meat. Because my sisters and brothers would walk over and everybody would have a bite, you know, lunch like with us. When my father came, I would go down and to the bakery on the corner and get out the pan with the cholent. We used to have a cholent every Friday, and it was delicious. Oh, I'm telling you, it was the meal of the day. But everybody used to come. My father had a friend that came, and they were friends from Europe. And as I say, we were very friendly. We had family there. So they were always in and out. We were in and out their house. It was a very close relationship. Families then were together. They were near each other. Sisters and brothers lived many times in the same building. But today you don't have that.
Yeah.
It's not the best today, believe me.
Are there any heirlooms that have been passed down from one generation to another?
Heirlooms?
Yeah, have you any neck
I had
jewelry
my mother's candelabra. I think I gave it to Lisa, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. No, that was it.
Yeah. Do you remember any funny school stories?
School stories. No, not that I can.
Were you a troublemaker?
I used to speak out. I always spoke out. Because when I see something is not the way it should be, I always speak out. And maybe that's what I'm here for. Because you don't know anybody that speaks out otherwise.
Keep going.
So when did you leave home for the
When
first time
after
when you
I-
moved out?
After we were married, I left home.
Okay, fine. So we can go into that. How did you meet your husband?
My husband lived in the building where my girlfriend owned the building. And her mother was a single woman, a widow. She ran the house. It was a 3-story house. And my husband's family had an apartment there. And my friend was the most gorgeous girl you ever want to meet, Anne. She was exquisite. She could have been in the movies. But she had a heart condition, a young girl like that. She died, she was 22 years old. And she could have been Miss Brooklyn, Miss New York. She was gorgeous. They lived in the same building. So one time she asked me to go with her. They were going to a party in a basement. We used to have like a basement, finish it up. So I went with her and my girlfriend Lily. So I met Artie there. And we picked up, and also his friend, what was his name, Alex Gasowitz. He used to walk with Artie, with my husband, before we were married, past my house and said, the girl that I want to marry lives here. So my husband got to know about me through Alex.
Oh, so Alex wanted to marry you?
Yeah,
That's funny.
I didn't like him at all. I never liked him. I did like my friend Lily's husband, Heshy. He was in fact, his sister just died a year ago. She was 94. Yeah.
So how old were you when you got your first job?
I was about 16 and a half.
What was it?
I was in a lawyer's office, 2 lawyers. I made $9 a week. I was glad to work. A job, I was lucky. So, but I used to work till 9 o'clock at night. My father used to come to the station, to meet me,
Yeah.
because he wouldn't let me walk in the dark.
What other jobs have you had in your life?
Well, I worked at the time then, I worked in the clothing industry. I used to work. I was what they called Girl Friday. You do everything. Your secretary, your bookkeeper, your model, you take to the post office, you do everything. But then we moved to Washington and I got a government job. The first job I had was the Bureau of Engraving. Then I got a job in the not Social Security, the draft, I forget what they called it.
Selective service.
What?
Selective service.
Selective service. Then I got a job in the Army, then I got a job in the Navy. I think that was my last.
What did you do in the Army and the Navy?
I
What
was
your job?
secretary.
Oh.
Yeah. I had, when I was in the Navy, was the wartime. I had the different admirals' resumes and worksheets. I was in charge of where they were going. I didn't send them, but once they were sent, I had their records to take care of. And I remember an actor, Richard Talmadge, was put in my department. I was so thrilled. He was a movie star. So he had a lot of pictures sent in. I took one home, I remember. I suppose that was stealing from the government, but now I can tell you about it. And that was that.
Is it before you met your husband? Did you have
No,
any
I was
boyfriends?
married. I was married in New York.
No, I'm saying before you met your husband, did you have any boyfriends?
I always had boyfriends and girlfriends, yeah. But it wasn't like today. It was like friends, you know what I
Why
mean?
don't you ask Grandma,
Yeah.
my grandma about how she got married or
You
where
didn't
she
get the
got
details
Oh,
of how
yeah.
old she was.
Now tell us how you got married.
Oh, we went and eloped.
Wait, did you?
married.
Yeah,
They eloped.
yeah.
Wait, why did you
Because
elope?
he was going to Washington and he didn't want me to go out with other fellas. So we got married.
Did you tell your parents?
I told my parents about 3-4 months ago
Later.
because my mother
Why?
was so sweet. I couldn't do it to her. It bothered me.
Wait, why? They didn't want you to get married to him?
No. Number one, I was a very, very outstanding kid. I was full of devilment. I was full of friends. I had people coming all the time. You see, my father used to send the boys out. He wouldn't let them up even.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But it was different. It was really different times then. We were kids, you know.
How old were you when you eloped?
I was 20,
And Daddy was how old?
22.
Still don't get why you eloped.
What?
She says she doesn't understand
Because her
why.
parents didn't want her to
You
get
eloped.
married.
Oh, my parents didn't want me to get married. No way. First of all, they were thinking of me marrying like the king of Sheba. You know what
and
I mean?
also Grandma was in college. Didn't you go to college?
Yeah, I went 1.5 years in college.
And what did
Where?
Grandpa
Brooklyn
do?
College?
Brooklyn College.
And when
What
did
did you
Grandpa
study?
have to leave school?
What?
When did Artie have to leave school?
Oh, Artie, my husband had to leave school. He was about 12. They were very poor. And my father-in-law had seasonal work only. So my husband had to go work. And, but he was very, very clever, as you know. And he had a very inquisitive mind. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so how did your parents react when you told them that you eloped?
There was nothing. My mother accepted it perfectly. My father didn't say a word. A rabbi there was a woman, her son was studying to be a rabbi. He wasn't even here then in Brooklyn. She came with a glass of jewels to my mother, that if my mother would keep me for her son, that I would have that glass of jewels. But my mother told her we're in America and the girls here choose their own husbands. It's not Europe where, you know, you're told who to marry. My mother was a very, you know, modern thinking woman.
And then, didn't you then have a Jewish wedding with Daddy?
Oh, of course.
Well, tell
Was you the
about
second
that.
one after?
'Cause you're
Yeah, of course we
So
had
tell
to
us
have.
about that.
Well, it was in the house, you know, and all the furniture was taken out, and they brought in horses, these wooden horses, and they made tables, and we had about 100 people. Of course, you know, we had the room, and my mother and my sisters did all the cooking. It really was a tremendous dinner. It was terrific. And we had music. It was very pleasant, very nice.
So you lived in a house or an apartment?
An apartment.
But it was big enough for
Oh,
to
yeah.
have all those people?
Well, it was what they call a railroad apartment. And each room was one after the other. You came up, here was the kitchen, and to the left was a bedroom, the living room, another bedroom, and another room. So you cleaned out those rooms, you pushed it out into the hall and back. And it was done all the time. My girlfriend E.T. had it the same thing. And the parents, my mother used to do all the cooking with my sisters. Delicious food. I remember the whole building smelled. No.
Sounds fun. So tell us about when you had kids. How old were you when you had your first kid?
When I had my
First child.
25.
Who was that?
Elaine.
Oh, and then?
Then Daryl.
And
And
then-
then Brenda.
Who are they? Are they named after anyone?
Well, Elaine is named after my
Is it?
Aunt Lenny,
Yeah.
Estelea. Daryl is Brocha Kleiner. Who was you named after? I'm trying to remember
your
now.
brother David.
Oh, yeah, my brother David. My brother David was a very popular man. He was very,
Josh.
he was very charitable. He was very kind. He was very likable. And, you know, he never used a pen or a pencil to add or subtract. Any numbers you gave him, multiplication, subtraction, he could do it in his mind. 1, 2, 3. My family was outstanding in math. Outstanding.
What happened to that gene? I think this gene skipped a generation.
Yes. Why?
Your
You're not good in
granddad
math?
has it.
Oh, our family's not so good at math. Danielle's good.
We're all
Brenda
English.
named after?
I'm good.
Who's Brenda named after?
Brenda, I have to remember. You think I remember? I don't remember. Brocha Kleiner. I don't remember her name, who she was named after. I can't tell you.
Didn't you speak Yiddish in your house?
Oh, yeah,
You were telling us about that.
yeah. I spoke Yiddish because that's what my parents spoke when I was growing up. And,
Did your husband speak it?
oh, yeah.
When did
He
you
came
stop?
from the same background.
When did you stop
No.
speaking it?
He never did. Oh, you mean it's like me? Well, I don't speak Yiddish anymore.
No, like you didn't speak it with your children?
Oh, when we were children, we all spoke it. Our whole neighborhood was Yiddish. There was nobody else there but Jewish people.
No, but you didn't speak to your own children?
No, there I made a mistake. I should have done that. My children do not speak Yiddish, and I'm sorry. Because it's a beautiful language, and wherever you go in the world, you'll find somebody who speaks Yiddish. I have been all over, and I've always found someone
I've been with her.
who speaks Yiddish.
Did you wait? You and your husband spoke it together, though.
What?
Did you and your husband speak it together?
When we spoke English.
Oh, really?
But when we were in the house and didn't want the children to know
That makes sense.
what we were talking about, we spoke Yiddish.
So, what are you proud of in your life? What makes you proud?
Of my children. I think they're outstanding. Take Josh here, a young man like that. Gentle, kind, gracious, wonderful person.
Say thanks.
And I think all my children are like that.
Yeah. So what do you miss of your childhood, of those days?
I miss the companionship of family. I had family until just a few years ago, but now I really don't have anybody left. Well, I have Murray, my nephew Murray, and his son, and his children. But I don't see them. They live very far away, and nothing you can do about it. That's what I miss.
Yeah. So what do you think of today, of all the inventions being made and
I think
all the technology?
I think it's fabulous. But I wonder if it makes anybody happier.
Do you remember the first time you saw TV? A television or...
Well, first we had the movies,
Yeah.
and then was the talking movies, so that was like television, really,
Yeah.
And by the way, when I used to go, when I was a little girl and I went to the movies, it was a nickel for two. So everybody would say, I have two who has three, I have two, I need three, so that we could go in together. And sometimes they had the 3 cents, sometimes I had the 3 cents.
Now it's like $10.
Not worth it.
It's true.
Not worth it.
Can you pause it?
Saying hi to Grandma.
Hi.
Say
Hi.
hi, Josh.
Hi.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so... Okay, so... What are we talking about? So what did you hear about during the Holocaust? Did you know anyone in it?
No, I had nobody in Europe at all. Nobody. But
What about your parents?
my parents were both gone.
What was it like, though, living all the way in America when the Holocaust was going on? Did you hear about it?
Oh, everybody knew about it. Everybody was involved. And my Daryl's father was ready to go into the army. He was into the Marines. The Marines wanted him. He was a big 6-footer, and he was a terrific guy. And the Marines, as soon as they saw him, the Marines said, we want him. And he was ready to go, but then the law passed that those 29 or over and married with children didn't have to go. So he was excused, because Daryl was born already, and so was Elaine. And so he was excused. He worked for the Navy. He worked on in a shop, like making stuff for the boats. I don't know what, I can't tell you. But that was what everybody was involved in the war. We had rationing. You couldn't get all the butter you wanted. You couldn't get all the meat you wanted. It was ration, sugar.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody adjusted to what they had to do. This was it. There was no, we knew that it was war.
Yeah.
And many, of course, young men died, which was very sad. At the beginning, the deaths were terrible, terrible. But you couldn't do anything, you know.
Josh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Were you lucky that you weren't living in Europe in that time?
What'd you say?
Were you lucky that
Did
you
you feel
weren't
lucky?
living in Europe in that time?
Oh, I was very lucky. I really was, and I appreciated it. I had never wanted to live in Europe, though. I never went to Russia. I never liked that country. It didn't offer anything to me. Poland, too. I wasn't anxious to go there even. And, but I was very fortunate that we always used to make jokes that our parents were smart. They came here to the United States. You know, when my mother came, she was 16 years old, came all by herself from Europe.
How'd her parents let her?
What?
How'd her parents let her?
Well, they let everybody. They used to come, children, 8-year-old, 10-year-olds, to get them out of Europe. They didn't want them to get into the draft, in the Russian draft, and be in the army, because they treated the Jewish soldiers terribly. Or the girls, you know, you know that I remember we had to put money away to send girls that were getting married linen, like sheets and pillowcases, tablecloths. They had to get married. They had nothing to start with. So we used to send money or the linen, either way. And if you sent linen, you had to wash it, because if it was new, you had to pay a tax there in Russia. There was a lot of ways that you were so glad you didn't live in, you know, Europe.
Yeah.
And you know, in England, they sent the children all the way out of England to other places, because they were being bombed. Little children, but it was wartime. There was no choice, you know.
Yeah.
We were lucky we didn't have to send anybody anywhere. You know, we weren't being bombed then.
Yeah. What significant historical events have taken place during your lifetime?
Million.
What do you mean by that?
Like, you were talking about the war. Do you remember when, like, the State of Israel was established?
Oh, sure, May the 14th.
What was that like?
It was the most exhilarating day. All you can think of is thank the good Lord for this blessing. We now have Israel, you know. But that was it, you know.
Like, how was it like living during the Great Depression?
There's nothing to like. There was nothing to like. Men who could work and wanted to work, couldn't get a job, and were selling apples and pencils. Some didn't have erasers and some had erasers. Well, with erasers, you'd get 4 pencils for a nickel. If without erasers, you got 5 pencils for a nickel. It was very bad times, very bad times. I remember coming into my friend's house, Bessie. Her parents had a cleaning store, and that didn't do too well, needless to say. And this was Friday night. My parents, we had a full, you know, I told you, duck and chicken and roast beef.
Yeah.
And here this family had one little neck and 2 or 3 feet of the chicken. Used to be we ate the feet of the chicken. They were good, by the way. And I forget what else. Little pieces the mother had bought, because they were so poor. And my friend Bessie was saying, she has more chicken than I do. And there was no chicken. And I had eaten all my chicken. I thought that I would choke. You know, I felt so badly that people, ordinary people, wanted to work and couldn't get enough money to eat properly. It was very sad. The Depression was a very sad time. And nobody felt good. Nobody.
Yeah. Josh, do you have any more questions, or Grandma?
Yeah, I have a few more questions. Josh,
Shifting.
do you have any questions? Huh? I wanted you to talk a little bit about how long you and Daddy were married, and if you
cover
remember
the
what
second
year
husband.
he died, because then also great grandma married Nathan. That was.
Oh, well, they
So
didn't know
how long were
Nathan.
you married to Daddy?
I was married 39 years, and he was a wonderful husband and a very devoted father. He always would say, I'll never do anything that people can point a finger at my children and say, your father did this or your father did that. I only wanted them to know that I'm an honest person. He used to give luncheons for the poor children at the Kennedy's house. On Sundays, he used to, in the nice weather, make luncheons and have homeless children and children without fathers come and be, have luncheon, play together. There was a man whose name was Drew Pearson.
Yeah.
Drew Pearson. He was a writer for the newspaper, the Post, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. He was world renowned. Now, Artie was his underhand. They started the Big Brothers. You know of the Big Brothers?
No, I think you should explain it.
No.
You don't know? Big Brothers is that men take little boys under their arms, and these boys have no fathers. So they take these children and they teach them how to make $1. Like Dad used to buy lawnmowers for boys or snow shovels, and he used to print up cards for them, their name and their phone number. Nobody had a phone in those days, but you used to have a phone in the candy store, so you knew the phone number. They would call you to the phone, and he used to make up these cards so that people in the area that needed a boy to either do errands or do the lawn mowing for them, that they couldn't, elderly people, that they would call these boys and give them a few cents. Shovel snow, they would make $1 to shovel snow. You know how much they charge today. Your grandfather was the most generous man in the whole world. He used to make banquets for the boys that, the Big Brothers. He was just wonderful. He always gave a lot of charity, always helped boys. Boys were his thing. And he was a terrific man and a terrific father. He worked very hard. And as you know, you all have part of his of his largesse in you. I have given every one of you in your lifetime some things from him that at times you will receive. But he was an exceptional man, and he did right by every one of us, Then when he passed away about 5 years later, I went with Nathan. Nathan was Harvey's father, Brenda's husband. He was a darling man.
How'd you meet?
What?
How'd you meet?
Oh, he's Harvey's father.
So you met him after,
He knew him for a long time.
No, I
They
knew him.
socialized. They were Makatanim.
Yeah, she was they were my in-laws when Brenda and Harvey were married. And, we were on the best of terms. She told Nathan to marry me. She said, go after Gwen, you'll never get anybody like her. And she used to be very sick. She was on dialysis 14 years. And, it was terrible. He was a wonderful husband.
Wait, so did that feel a little weird though, that you got married to Brenda's father-in-law?
Oh, it's not unusual. No, it happens. But I really never had any business with him. In fact, he asked me to go out with him. One day we met at shul, and I said, if I don't go out, I says, I'm not ready to go out. I said, but if you want a date, I'll be glad to get you. I have good and nice girlfriends that are single. He says, I'm a big boy. I know how to make a date. He says, I want to go with you, not with them. But I was just ridiculous. To me, it was ridiculous. But anyhow,
Did
when
Brenda
I
Hargis
told
there?
Brenda what had
Was she like,
happened,
what?
she near hit the roof. She said, for God's sake, what would kill you if you went to the wront with him? Who would bother you? She says, oh, what if you went to a movie with him?
Oh, so she was like, she
thought
nudging you?
she was really mad. Oh, boy, she says, don't tell Harvey. Don't tell Harvey. I said, I didn't intend to. Why would I tell Harvey? I'm talking to you. So anyhow, after I hung up with Brenda, I realized I hadn't done the right thing. So I called Nathan and I invited him for lunch. After services on the next Saturday, I asked him to come home with me for lunch. So when we came home, I lived at the Shoreham then, and that's at the head of the park, Rock Creek Park. My house went right into the park. So we went for a walk and all that, and he's a very nice man. I always liked him, but I wasn't interested. So we started to go together. We went here, we went there. His cousins or nephews, I don't remember, had a party in Baltimore. He asked me to go with him. He didn't want to go alone, so I went with him. Things like that. Nothing with nothing. And then we decided to get married.
How long were you dating?
I'd say about 9-10 months. But we weren't dating first. It was just going out together. I was like fitting in when he needed somebody. It was not but I realized I was childish, Life goes on and people have to live.
8 minutes. Should keep going.
Let's talk about like McDonald's.
So how long were you married to Nathan?
12 years. And not only that, I did Nathan's books from his business. I became a bookkeeper again.
Going back to Daddy, when you got married and you came to Washington to live with him, that's fine. I know he had different delis and different restaurants.
Oh yeah.
And when he decided to take a chance with McDonald's, you probably were thinking, what's McDonald's? You probably weren't in favor of such a thing that you didn't know anything about.
Well, no, it wasn't that at all. We had gone all over to look at different stores and kinds of places. We went as far as, Washington State. And California, we went all over. And he liked this, and he said he feels it's a thing of the future. And I was hesitant because how could you make a living at such prices? It was 10 cents a hamburger, 10 cents a French fry. I thought, how could you make a living? My God, you'd have to sell 1 million of them a day. So, but then when he said no, he wants to do it, he'll take a chance on. So I went along with him and I did the bookkeeping then for the business, And we lived in Washington and the office was in Virginia, a good hour away. I had to get my children off to school, see that they had lunch, and ride all the way out to Virginia, do a day's work, come home, make dinner, We had dinner every day of the week, I'll tell you that much. And, you know, it wasn't easy. And then he took sick and was hospitalized. And I had to run the whole business. Oh, my God.
Wait, so what happened? First I don't know how it works. First he had a store in,
Restaurants.
a restaurant in, did he have all of them in Washington, D.C.? Like the
All in
franchise?
Virginia. All in Virginia. Virginia was a very
She
nice
means
place to
before
make a
Mc- you mean
living.
before
Yeah.
McDonald's.
We lived in
Oh,
Virginia.
No, then when you got McDonald's, the first one was in Virginia.
Yes.
He opened up one,
Right.
and that did well, and then he opened up another, and
That did very well too.
Yeah.
They all did well. He was very lucky. He had a wonderful business sense. We were very lucky.
Now it's huge.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
All
How
over the
does that
world.
feel when you see these big
Oh no,
McDonald's all over the world?
doesn't
Cool
bo-
that.
doesn't bother me at all. In fact, last year the president of McDonald's called me. He got my number from David Shapiro.
Yeah.
Was it last year?
No,
Two
but it
years?
was 2 years ago. There's a historian at the McDonald's headquarters in Chicago, and he came to Florida to interview Grandma.
Yeah, but
and-
that was after David spoke with.
Yes, David had some contact with somebody from McDonald's.
He
and
wanted
gave-
a job there or something.
No, I forget what it was. It
Yeah,
wasn't
I don't
a job.
remember
But
either.
anyway, and so Grandma spoke to the president, who she had known. Fred Turner is probably retired.
No, he's still.
Oh, is he?
He's not the president,
anyway,
but
they
he's the big
came and-
holder.
They came and interviewed Grandma and had a tape recorder. I was there. Grandpa was there. I think Auntie Lane and David were there.
No.
Somebody else was with us. Anyway, that was kind of exciting because Grandma is like the only person left other than Fred Turner that really knew all these beginnings and what what McDonald's was like long ago. And this was the McDonald's historian, so he wanted to have this information for his records, and it was very. I thought it was very exciting. Didn't you, Mom, when he came?
Oh yeah, I liked him anyhow. He was a nice
Yeah,
young
very
man.
nice.
Very nice young man. And
that's. I don't know. Do you have any other
I want to
questions?
know about Ronald McDonald.
oh, Ronald McDonald was a magician,
Was
a
it a
clown. That's what he portrayed. And Dad hired him. They didn't have anything like that. Oh, so when he had him, and he was such a success, Dad knew that McDonald was for the young.
Yeah.
He knew that. So he played up to them, with toys, little toys, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And little baskets for the young and all that. And then he got the clown, and the clown used to come and fool around when we opened, and all that. And then on the and Dad wanted television. McDonald did not want television. Dad was the only one that had television. And when Ray Kroc saw how he was doing, he said, "We'll go in also." So they took in television. And what else? I am trying to remember.
And
McDonald.
now McDonald's.
And then they tried to get somebody else. They wanted somebody for the rest of the country. But the guy that they took on wasn't successful. So they asked Dad for Ronald McDonald, for our Ronald McDonald, who Dad had named. Dad named him Ronald McDonald. So they took our Ronald McDonald, and they used him for years. But then he got too old, And he became a wealthy man, by the way.
Yeah, but they still have Ronald
Yeah, they
McDonald,
still
but
have the
it's another
guy.
actor playing.
Yeah, but he's
And they have
another guy.
commercials with
yeah.
him.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's
it's a different
Do you
another.
remember who the original Ronald McDonald was in Washington?
Yeah.
Boats of the Clown.
No, it was, what was his name? Willard Scott.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
On
still
the
is.
Today Show.
Didn't he play?
He still is.
I thought it was. Didn't he really play though? Bozo the Clown.
Yes, he was Bozo the Clown. Right.
Yeah,
That's
he
right.
was.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Memories.
true.
Alright,
True.
I think
Videos
this tape is
ended.
over.
Ray
Yeah.
Kroc, Fred
Wait, the
Turner
Crocs, the
was
thing-
a young then.
Are we doing another one? Are we done?
I think they're pretty
Is
good.
it- There's no room left. It's gonna start erasing other things.
Don't.
Things. I'm not one that, so I don't need anything except my family.
Wait till you gave Grandma your engagement ring?
It was my wedding engagement ring that my husband bought later on, not when we first got engaged.
My father. Right. I don't think you probably had an engagement ring when you
I don't
first
think
got
I
engaged.
did. No.
So what? You also didn't say what Daddy's name was and what his Hebrew name was or Yiddish
Oscar.
name.
His name is Usher.
Yeah, go ahead. What was his English name?
Oscar.
But he didn't like that name.
No, he liked the name Arthur, King Arthur. But
And
that
his-
was because as a boy, he was the head of all his friends. He was a very big guy. He was 6 foot, and he was very good in sports. Everybody wanted him on their football team, on their baseball team. Oh, and this is a funny story. He was playing baseball, and he had a slide. You know how sometimes you have to slide? And when he slid, he tore his pants. So the pants were flapping like this, you know, like a bird. And he was running after the next, you know, hole to get to the next base.
Yeah.
And here the pants are flapping, and I thought, oh my God, he'll never live this down. Why does he run? Hold your pants and walk, for God's sake. But anyhow, he ran, and with the flapping things, he made it. He made the home run. It was so funny. He didn't have another pair of pants to get into. That was his pair of pants, you know. Oh,
That's so
And what
funny.
was Daddy's Hebrew name again?
Usher.
That was probably his Yiddish name.
Yeah.
Hebrew name was
Asher.
probably Asher.
Usher, Usher,
Yeah,
depends
yeah,
how you
yeah.
pronounce it.
And what were his parents' names?
Bernard or Benjamin, and Rachel. Rachel Rachel.
Yeah.
And she was a very beautiful woman. Darrell favors her.
Well, I remember her. She's the only grandparent that I really knew.
But when she was a young girl, she was turning white. As a young girl, her hair was turning white. She wasn't even married.
Sounds like Lisa.
Well,
Yeah,
Brenda
that's it.
turned white, you know. At 30 years, Brenda was white, 33. So
You're so pretty, could pull it off.
but anyhow, she didn't want to be white. She was so young and in Europe yet, so they had the stove polish. She used to use it on her hair. And when it would rain and she'd get caught, it would drip down. Poor thing. Oh, my God.
That's hilarious.
She
must
was,
dye their hair.
by the way, she was the most outstanding baker. Really baked. She made challah that you can't imagine. It was better a week later. It was the most delicious food she had. She was a wonderful cook and baker. So I always used to tell your grandfather, he must get the food from his mother, you know. And
So funny.
Josh, you have a question?
Was that her job to be a baker?
what was that?
Was that her job to be like a baker?
No, he was never a baker, honey. Never.
No, she just baked for the family, really.
Yeah.
You know. What did Daddy's father do for a living?
Daddy's father worked part-time, seasonal.
Oh.
He was a presser for coats, ladies' coats, and that was seasonal. In those days, you used to wear a spring coat or a winter coat. Today, they don't wear spring coats. In fact, I never hear of them.
No.
You wear like fall coats. Not, yeah.
Yeah, but that was spring coats. In fact, for Passover, we used to get outfits. A new dress and shoes and a hat. Because you had to go to shul, you needed a hat. I never wear a hat today. But then we used to wear a hat. I remember I had a straw hat. I loved it. It was so beautiful. Had something here I don't remember even. But I had one hat.
Any more questions?
I can't think of any.
Same.
Always.
What do you guys do for Passover and holidays?
We were always in my mother's house.
Uh,
But then, when we were married, we used to bring the children to Florida and have our Passover Seder's in Florida.
When did you start going to Florida, you and Daddy?
Uh,
Like to the carriage house?
yeah. Well, the carriage house, we lived in 170, in 1970 we lived there.
what was the carriage house?
It's there now, by the way.
A beautiful apartment
It was a
building in
gorgeous
Miami
apartment
Beach, on the
house.
ocean.
On the ocean, and not only that, it was outstanding. I mean outstanding. We had a butler on every floor. We had a place by our door where you put your shoes, the butler would polish your shoes, and in the next morning your shoes were in your little butler place there. all polished, shining. It was lovely. And it had the finest restaurant in all of Florida in that building. I forget his name. And
Had a beauty parlor.
oh, it was
Still has a
outstanding.
beauty
It was gorgeous. Now it's still a nice building.
Yes, it is.
And I was on the 11th floor, and we looked out over the intercoastal and the river. It was like you're on a cruise ship. You know, I had the bars on the
Yeah.
balcony, like you were in a cruise ship looking out. It was terrific. It was really a beautiful building. And it still is today one of the good
Very
buildings.
lovely building.
Yeah. It's near where they used to live.
In your lifetime, did you travel?
Yes,
And go
we
to-
traveled.
Where did you go?
Well, practically all over the United States, practically every state.
For McDonald's?
No, first we were looking for a business. But we would go, when we'd sell a restaurant, we were very tired and needed vacation. Because the hours in a restaurant are backbreaking, really backbreaking. And so we would take the children and go on a trip. One time we went on a trip cross country, and Darryl had a boyfriend and evidently did not want to go on the trip. So she made us miserable. So I told her, you make us miserable now and I'll make you miserable when we get home. So we made a bargain. And after that was the most wonderful trip. And believe this or not, the front mirror, the front glass was coated with that you couldn't get sunburned, you know.
Yeah.
I sitting in the front, my lips got burnt.
Yeah, it was very hot. We
It
were in
was, we went
Nevada.
west, yes. Oh,
Well, but mention what other countries you went to out of the U.S. You've
Yes.
been to other countries.
oh yes.
Where have you been?
I've been to, Shanghai, not Shanghai, what's the name of that country? If you drop a paper on the floor, you go to jail, by the way. What's the name?
Is that Singapore? I didn't think you were in
Singapore.
Singapore.
Singapore and Bali I was. I loved Bali. I thought it was so beautiful, so different. But I understand today it's not so nice, but I haven't been there today.
Yeah.
And I was to England and Ireland, Scotland, the islands
Yeah.
there. Oh, they were lovely. Paris, France, all France. And Italy, and of course Israel. That was really a lovely place. And I don't remember even. But I know that I was in practically every state in the U.S. Not Alaska, though. I never went to Alaska.
Grandpa's been to every state but 3.
Right. Did you go to Hawaii?
I went to Hawaii a number of times.
That's so cool.
What do you call that? China,
Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, and what is this? Where they just had that terrible.
Japan?
Oh, where they had the earthquake? The
Were you
The
in Japan?
Sami.
tsunami?
Oh, the tsunami?
Wasn't that Japan?
Japan.
Japan.
I was in
Did you go to
Japan.
Japan?
Oh
That's so
yeah,
cool.
I went to Japan, and I like Japan.
And you never tried sushi?
Never tried sushi. No. I did try it here once, a piece of cucumber, but that was all I ate. I wasn't that,
It's funny.
yeah.
I think you did a wonderful interview, Grandma.
Oh, thank you, girls. Thank you, Josh. You were a big help.
I think that the kids picked really wonderful questions
Yes,
to
they
ask
did.
for you. I know
Yes,
they all
they did.
worked on that to make the
Yes.
list of questions.
I want them to know how wonderful their grandfather was. The ark in the synagogue where I belonged was put up in his honor. Memory it should be, but it's in his honor. and I put up the atrium in the synagogue for Nathan, and I give scholarships in Nathan's name in this synagogue. And as I say, you know, I paid all your tuition, everybody's tuition, all the kids up till last year. And that I was very pleased with. And I've given everybody something to remember when I'm gone.
And also you give, you belong to Hadassah and give to Hadassah Hospital. You're a very charitable person
yes, I am.
yourself.
Yes, now I am still. Yes, I do. And Brandeis, I support a handicapped child there to go through school. And that's all from your grandfather, because I did not make it. I kept it. I held on and kept it and put it where I thought it was doing the best job.
All right, are we done?
Yep,
Okay, thank you, Grandma.
thank you. I gave you lipstick, I think.
It's okay. I liked it.
I can't even see it, I'm sorry. Yeah.